When you see us here on Sunday morning as we begin service, I would think you naturally assume that everything was set in place and that we've just been whisked in to be with you now, right? Well, a lot of times it is, but today was kind of like a three-ring circus. So we had a few things that we had to adjust, and the biggest thing for me was that the step that was built when I first became senior minister had been taken away because Reverend Chad was in this pulpit last week. And when he stands on this, he's 10 feet tall. But if I don't stand on this, this is how much you get to see. So we found it and we put it back in. And I realized as I came into this pulpit to pray this morning how strong I feel about the sense of place, about the sense of sacredness in this place that we all share. I have always had a strong sense of place. Where I'm from, where I've lived, where I live now are important to me. I feel most centered when I feel I have found home. I've lived in 8 states, but never overseas. And while I have appreciated each place, not all of them felt like home. When we moved to Los Angeles 10 years ago, I knew I was home. I loved being here from the very first moment. The connection I feel to this city keeps me grounded and centered. Growing up in southeastern Washington, we were extremely connected to the land. And while that particular part of the West Coast is a world all unto its own, for many reasons, the production of wheat is central to its life. While my family were not wheat farmers, many of my friends' families were. Their lives revolved around the season of farming. Late summer and early fall were harvesting time, and once the wheat was ready to harvest, the school desks emptied and my friends stayed home to work the fields. For the first 17 years of my life, I lived at the edge of this landscape called the Palouse. And to this day, that land is embedded in my spirit. So you can only imagine that I love the thought of Jesus and his friends walking through the grain fields, talking about life and learning from the one who was teaching them to open their eyes to a new way of understanding God. In our reading for today, we are told it was the Sabbath, and it was their holy law that no one should work on that day. When some of the religious elite appeared and caught the friends of Jesus taking the grain, rubbing it with their hands and eating it, they saw an opportunity to point out the problem with what they were doing. Depending on our personality, past experiences, and where we are in our spiritual journeys, each one of us would have responded to the correction of the religious elite differently. Some of us may have been very angry at being criticized. Others of us would have felt shame for breaking the rules. And still others of us would have been afraid we were going to be in serious trouble. It seems, though, that Jesus did not miss a beat. Jesus simply asked a question. Have you not read what David did when he and the troops were hungry? With that question, Jesus reminded them of King David, a revered leader of the people who broke the rules. Rather than being angry or ashamed or fearful, Jesus just asked a few questions. Rather than telling the religious elite that they were wrong, Jesus gave them an opportunity to rethink their position. And in doing so, from a place of his own centeredness, Jesus went against the grain of the strict religious beliefs of that day and that time. Pamashodran, the Buddhist teacher who has been one of our companions this summer, encourages us to embrace this idea of going against the grain. Going against the grain involves moving counter to the habitual patterns of societal and religious expectations. These expectations have throughout time kept us stuck in cycles of suffering. Shodron explains that our instinct is often to seek comfort, to avoid pain, and cling to that which feels familiar, even if we know deep in our bodies that it is wrong. Yet she believes that true growth comes when we choose to confront the things we know that are wrong directly and break free from what is keeping us from the future that is before us. In this place, each week, we are deconstructing and reconstructing our faith on a regular basis. And I believe as we do this, week after week, month after month, year after year, there does come a time when we finally have to buck up and not only talk about doing some things, but we have to go against the grain and actually do them. Since going against the grain could mean letting go of everything we have been taught to believe is true, it is not something we should do haphazardly. And do not let anyone tell you going against the grain is easy, because it is not. It is in fact extremely difficult, because to do so, we have to let go of that embedded theology that runs so very deep. As a reminder, embedded theology are those ideas, beliefs, and principles that were given to us as gospel truth and that we have now discovered are no longer true for us and what we know of God. They are no longer valid in our lives because no matter what we have been told, we now realize that the divine is constantly inviting us to open our hearts, our minds, and our bodies to the ever-expanding understanding of who God is and of who we are. As we come to embrace that each one of us has been created in the image of God, we are learning that God is always and forever calling us into that future. It is a future filled not with judgment and fear, but rather a future filled with grace and goodness and love for all people. As this miracle unfolds, we inevitably find there are things we simply have to let go of. This is not an easy task, nor is it a one-time event. As we are creating our future with God, we will keep going against the grain of what has been and what still is orthodox to so many. Because we have believed adherence to our embedded beliefs have been attached to our safety and security and salvation, letting them go can be so frightening. True change requires breaking free from old habits and comfort zones, even when it feels uncomfortable or uncertain. Our greatest growth often comes when we embrace discomfort rather than avoid it. I'm not sure that would be a good ad for the church. Come to First Church and embrace discomfort. This willingness to face difficulty head on is the key to our spiritual development. And as hard as this is, Children believes we can find liberation and true peace. Going against the grain means being willing to experience the discomfort in the pursuit of authenticity, wisdom, and deeper connectedness to our true selves. The good news is we are not alone in this process. We are in good company because Jesus and our spiritual ancestors through the ages have been going against the grain for at least a couple of thousand years. Their reward came in finding their own inner truth and wisdom, and their lives invite us to step into this unknown time and place. I know these times are rough. And I know it does not look better anytime soon. That's why I also know that now is the time that we must find our centeredness as individuals and as a community of faith. These places of unknowing allow us to surrender our fictional belief that we can control outcomes. And the ancestors tell us, as it turns out, surrendering the need over outcomes, surrendering the need to control them, and stepping into that unknown space can actually be very liberating. They also remind us that this is the time we must hold tightly to all those who need our love and support. We welcome so many people onto this campus. We are welcomed onto this campus. And we all need love and support. And perhaps most importantly, the ancestors remind us that we must commit to taking this journey together. Deep breath. So will we find the courage to break free from our old habitual embedded patterns? Will we be brave enough to embrace discomfort in order to grow? Will we take the road less traveled and embrace nonconformity as a path to authenticity? Will we have the courage to go against the grain and find what is ours to do in this moment and time? We begin to answer those questions as together we come to the table. And as we come to this table, we are all invited to open our hearts, our minds, and our bodies to the meal that feeds our hunger and quenches our thirst. May it be so.